So it says we're live.
Great.
Hello, hello, and the mic seems to be working. And we've got our new system up, so there's some improvements that you might not be able to see, but um, so I'm gonna
That's a funny title.
see if I can.
Hmm.
Yep. Let's see if I can find myself now. You know what? I still haven't signed into YouTube
How is that possible that you're streaming to YouTube without being in it?
because I'm going through OBS.
That sounds like some hot flash stuff.
Yeah. Oh, it looks like I can. It'll go to me. Um, 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 um. Okay, mute that. Got a new computer here too, so I'm extra slow. And I don't know how I got to this. Ah,
Are you okay?
there's a link here for Wikitubia to Tommy Sawyer, better known online as 3SPM, is an American vlogging channel run by a surviving member of Heaven's Gate, an American New Age religious group.
Don't get distracted. You're trying to sign into YouTube.
I know, baby. That's shorts. Guess it's this one.
There you go. And now just find your live stream.
Right.
Well, you already know that. So. Dang, yeah, I'm seeing that city in China.
Yeah, really? It's really in the water. Huh?
Well, I mean, it looks like it's on an inlet or something. So kind of reminds me of some of our cities in Florida.
I guess I'm not going to log in to Twitter. So I can't share it to Twitter X. Oh well, that's all right. So let's see here. I don't know if there's anybody out there yet. 7 individuals watching. Yeah, I'm just setting up, the things. I don't have this all streamlined, except to the degree that I do. You should have a bit of volume now, or equivalent to what we had before. If you don't have decent volume, I'd appreciate hearing about it. Either way. So, so I'm just gonna uh, start by talking about the subject, which is going to be somewhat of a repeat of the last time because there's always parts of it to think about differently, especially from session 4 of Those Beyond Human series. So someone named DSM999, I always got a kick out of Doe referring to Lucifer as Lucy. Yeah, but he used that term Lucy for not a long time. Well, I guess a while. I don't know if you ever heard him, Kathy. You ever heard him in the tapes?
I'm trying to think. Just the Beyond Human.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't, when I used to hear it, him saying, referring to Lucifer as Lucy, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I can understand it, what you're feeling there. You got a kick out of it. Don't make too much of that, but but he didn't want to do that when he heard himself saying it on the On Human series. This is session 4 that I've got on the screen there. And the people that don't recognize it or haven't read it, it's Doe saying in the Beyond Human tapes, I'm gonna saying now here's a real delicate subject I hate to discuss, but I'm afraid that our Father's kingdom is not going to come in. Boy, I can hear Lucy shouting at me before I ever get those words out of my mouth. I'm sorry, Lucy, I said. I hear Satan shouting at me. In other words, he was using the word Lucy to Satan because uh, he had already told us before that he felt bad about somebody that had the name Lucy, thinking that that was a derogatory name for them to have. And it was not. In fact, it's actually a beautiful name. It, like a lot of names, most names maybe, I guess you could say, but is one who gives light. It's an inspiring kind of name that probably that individual chose for himself or was given that by his older member at some point, or he chose it for himself. If he chose it for himself, then it shows that uh, it shows a member of the next level that becomes a light bearer when they are working for the next level, when they are in their older members' database. When their older member has their mind on us, on the ones that are seeking for that. And so at some point, uh, um, that individual caught the eye enough of the next level older members to where he was given a task on a spacecraft with some others. And yet at the same time, and it was an elementary level task, according to Doe and T, um, and it was a primitive spacecraft that they had. So it and you get some indication potentially of what the way that task was talked about from the Book of Enoch, which I'm not saying is totally reliable for accurate information, but it's probably some reliable of it, or some accurate information, maybe even a lot. Because T felt like that was the task that Doe did back then. Uh, that became known as the Book of Enoch, and I know there's like a second book uh, and another Enoch, and I get a little bit confused by some of that, and to me that looks like space alien interference to confuse things like that. Because in the one Book of Enoch that I read, that I felt like was the most authentic. Well, I shouldn't say that I did a real comparison with the others. I didn't, so I shouldn't say it that way. But because of the content, even having to do with what I'm talking about now, the elementary tasks that once members of the next level were doing on Earth, um, was to observe, to be a watcher, is the term I believe that was used in that Book of Enoch to describe those individuals from the heavens at the time that Genesis 6 talks about as the sons of God coming to the daughters of men and, uh, and birthing giants, mighty ones, Nephilim, or Nephilim, however you say that correctly. But so the reason I thought that that made sense to me that they were doing a watcher task was because in the classroom when we had different departments in the homes that we lived in, and even in the campground was our home, outdoors living in Wyoming and northern Colorado and other places, Texas and stuff. But um, like they had the department for making food, right? You know, people would have a common understanding of, and that T and O changed our thinking about that, introduced us new words to describe what we were doing that were that making of food was actually a laboratory in the next level. I mean, not in the next level, but a simulation of the next level laboratory in the ways that we did things and the ways that we thought and well, thought and acted upon, which we were learning. We didn't know what those ways were until T and Do started sharing us things to work on, like for instance, limiting our speech so that we weren't having so many thoughts going through our heads and then all of them coming out and just gabbing and stuff, for entertainment or for relationship building and whatever it is in the human kingdom, or sharing information with others and all that. That part of it was over at the time when we started to work on the overcoming process. Um, and or walking up the stairs quietly, not stomping up the stairs, even walking around the campgrounds in a way that didn't look, you know, abrasive. Like I was actually that was a lesson that I got not from T and O directly, but from my partner who at the time T and O gave the task of partners to bring up to their partners anything about them that they felt like that other partner might need to work on based on their understanding of what T and O were teaching us. And that got brought up that I was stomping around the campground. And there were other lessons, of course. There were lots of them. Uh, and getting out of self was a big one. And you do that by stopping your thoughts about the past. Even though they didn't describe it that way as getting out of yourself. They just said that you needed your total effort and your total mind to be on accomplishing the tasks that they were giving us, the tasks that they were giving us. Because the task involved monitoring your own thoughts and feelings and actions and, and choosing to stop the thoughts that um, you don't want to have anymore because you want to have only the thoughts that are given to you by your older member. And that's a process of learning what those are because we don't know how to differentiate until we get the standards of our older members to help us describe when something is an extreme to do, when something is important to work on, when something isn't as important to work on, to try to accomplish the task as quickly as possible. That's the way it works for members of the next level. They do their tasks as quickly and efficiently as possible within their sensitivity to what their older members gave them uh, to work on that they then used when they would take human vehicles in a task like uh, T&O did um, to bring up the civilization. The entire civilization is brought up potentially. I say potentially because there's free will. So people don't have to choose the direction that the next level wants for us. Like, for instance, they don't want humans to be making weapons to kill other humans with. So right away, that separates a whole bunch of people from next level mind. Now, that doesn't mean that we can judge the people are that are justifying using weapons for killing other humans with. We can't judge them because we don't know what they're up against and we don't know when they might change and how much they might change and we don't know what the next level can do in the future to help them as they go through their own turmoils in life, whatever they are, whether it's in business or family or uh, all the aspects of life that humans all have challenges with. And then, of course, um, some group of humans, which I can't describe exactly where they all are, um, uh, they've built for themselves their own illusion of what they are meant to become or do. And it might not be a total illusion, because it might be a number of things. And some of it, uh, I can't judge it all either, but are also tests. And they get tests. Um, and who knows? I mean, what Tiandon talked about was that if if you don't ask the next level for help with things and to seek their mind for things and for choices that you make, and then um, try to apply the answers to your questions when you feel that that we're getting that communication, which can be elusive, but it can also be um, the lower forces that would make it elusive, and um, then we're shutting ourselves off from that direction. It's a practical reality that if you're not trying to communicate with them, then the only way that you're showing that communication is by your actions, not your mind so much, except for the ways that you have grown to maybe treat other humans as you would want to be treated, which is a way of the next level to give us to help get out of ourselves. So we all potentially are growing, regardless of what we believe and what we do uh, in the human kingdom, but it's all degrees of growth. And some growth can be achieved, but we don't rest members of the next level. I'm not saying we, but I'm saying that those that gravitate to this thinking will find by listening to T and those tapes and their written material that uh, that the whole human culture, the kingdom, is part of the next level's uh, experiment with the civilization. So everybody can be potentially moving up, but many don't. Well, I shouldn't say many. Well, I think many don't because they said that there's more badness in the world than there is goodness, but there's more individuals that are achieving or harboring or containing uh, goodness, and that goodness is more powerful than the badness. That's why there's more goodness in the world, actually, according to T. I don't know if that's changed after if they were counting themselves in that. But goodness is what is real, and that doesn't present anything deceitful to anybody.
You
Or
don't have to practice.
you don't, you have to what?
You don't have to practice
No.
at
Good.
being good.
That's right. You don't have to practice at being good, but you will be practice when you are more good, right? Because it'll be magnetism, I think. I don't know. I guess I think that when we are with somebody that, like Kathy and I are with people, for our job, delivering people on rides, um, and and some people get in the car and you have all different kinds of vibrations that you feel from different people that are getting in the car. And sometimes you get a kind of a disturbed vibration. And it doesn't mean that they're being disturbing to us intentionally, but they may be going through something that's disturbing, to
Right.
them. And
Just like anybody encounters people at their jobs or, throughout their day.
hmm right,
People are going through stuff.
right. But then if you've got your mind on not judging them per se,
Yeah.
I think that's a form of goodness that um, can actually help them even if they choose, or just they could respond to by wanting to talk more about their problems or their life. I don't know. I may be wrong about that. It doesn't happen often to me, I don't think. And of course, I'm not saying that it's anything special necessarily, but I can't deny that I've been given a chunk of, or even a morsel, or I don't know what the size of it is, but it's a blob from the next level. And I didn't retain it, as much of that when I left, but it doesn't mean it's gone forever, and doesn't mean I haven't gotten it back to where I'm still growing. We can't judge ourselves. I mean, we can know that it's the next level way to uh, want to keep growing, and and you know surrender. That's where that surrender comes to the next level, and say, okay, please lead me through it, and they will find ways of helping us in all the ways that they feel are appropriate and that we can handle. Like Kathy verified a few days ago, talking about how they never give us more than we can handle,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
and trying to do more, that stimulates wanting to do more. When we see how we're getting helped, which of course in the human kingdom, it's like when we have a financial problem or even a problem with where we're going to live or because we're mobile, and we actually have to have places where that can we can sustain ourselves with electricity and for air conditioning in the summer and heat in the winter and not have to break our pipes and everything. So we're kind of we have to go with nature
Yeah.
if to continue this lifestyle style
So
maybe.
we need somewhere to camp in around Savannah, Georgia, please.
Yeah,
Somewhere to plug in. We need at least
drive into a warehouse and be
50
able to plug in
amps. Yeah. And a
to
cold
30 to 50
place
amps.
where we can make money doing Uber. We'll park.
Maybe we can pay for some of it,
And
of
then do
course,
you,
for electricity.
we can't pay for shit. We already know that. We're already
Well, we have to
paying.
try, I guess.
We're already paying for places that if we're
Yeah, we
somewhere
could
else,
work.
yeah,
I could sweep the floor.
we got it. We can work, but we cannot spend any money. So
Yeah, on that part because
it's not
we
as
can barely make
serious.
our expenses.
We don't want to go to Texas. Texas sucks for us. We cannot make money there.
Right.
We hate it because unfortunately we do have friends. We can't work in California. I don't know. There are limitations, but
So it looks like that's why we're saying
Savannah,
Georgia
Georgia.
or
Well,
South Carolina
not
or
just Georgia though. Savannah. We can't just go anywhere in Georgia. I don't want to work in Atlanta. Do you?
not really.
No. So
I don't know what that would be like. Whether that would be any good or not.
we're not working. I'm not driving in Atlanta.
Okay. Well,
That's one of the worst places for. Have you
really?
looked at? There's nothing going on in the chat or anything.
No, I will do.
Whew. Top. Do you have all comments?
So Mr. Starkiller says hello, and then says, I haven't been here in a while, but I have some university stuff to do. It's good to see you again. Oh, thank you. Good luck on your university studies. Finch says, greetings, or when you or work in university. I'm not assuming you're a student, or you could be a professor for all I know. Anyway, Finch says, greetings, Sawyer and Kathy. Hello, my wonderful YouTube friends, says Old School Dave. Greetings to
Hello.
you, and
Hello.
hello to Old School Dave again. Good to see your faces.
Mhm.
Um,
Kind of
Mrs.
just want.
Sawkiller says, question, what is your opinion of June Odie? I ask this because I recently saw a tape and she was very good at public speaking.
She's awesome.
Yeah, she's awesome.
I love her. I
Yes,
wish I could have met her.
yes. Um,
I wish I could have met everybody, but
yeah, yeah, yeah. June Odie is
it,
June Odie is a
she's
beautiful
smart.
soul.
She's quick. Yeah,
Yeah, and
she's fast.
yeah, and she was direct. She she could talk about something and you wouldn't get, like it was clear. It was just clear.
Yeah, I love the way that she uses, like in the Chicago meeting.
Yeah,
I like the way she
yeah,
talks.
yeah. And that's why in the Chicago meeting we were encouraged to have a number of individuals on that little panel
Mhm.
expressing themselves because every individual has their
Personal
potential
experience.
connection with others, in this genetic, ancestral, environmental arena of the mind.
Well, like y'all had talked about, each person, each member of the class represented a genetic strain,
Hmm.
different genetic strains, and every time you were overcoming, you were sending out that overcoming on that strain.
And if you weren't overcoming, you're also sending that out.
Yeah.
And that was the lesson step that they were in until uh, um, that they weren't actually writing things for the public again. because they did that from 1975 to, well, actually before that, they started writing in 1973, as best I understand, uh, around January and February from Bernie, Texas. Uh, but then they continued to write and evolve their understanding uh, through the months until in 1975 and 6, we gave public meetings, all over the United States, and then formed in Wyoming, met to and were living outdoors for a number of years, for about 3 or 4 years, till about 1980. But the picture is there that we were getting all kinds of lessons that I was talking about before, and how to actually become a member of the next level, how to qualify to work in a laboratory on a spacecraft that can be as big as a planet, and that humans don't have the technology to detect, is what it is. Like they may think it's the picture that I used in my what do you call that icon
Thumbnail.
of the show, Pluto. That's a picture of Pluto from the New Horizons spacecraft, I think it was. And which I've got some stories to tell about that, but I'm not going to go through them now. But because of the movie that Tiendo made, that was that they said was fiction based on the truth, that depicted the next level's perspective of working with the planet Earth and the human kingdoms and on the planet, and the other kingdom levels as well of the animal and plant and mineral, because the next level works with all those creatures that they've uh, brought to life, that they've given they propagated, from who knows how many times doing that. Anyway, but so we're their baby, but
Baby, baby. Sorry.
yeah, and I did have the honor of working with Junodi
Mm-hmm.
in the Beyond Human tapes. You'll see the two of us together on a number of the sessions. And Junodi was actually, when she joined in 1975, she was pregnant. But and there was a family that um, wanted the baby, and so I don't think they did it through legal means, but she went to that place and with Marcodi actually, Mark, and she, well, all right, well, let's move on in the chat. So Mr. Soulkiller said, at that Chicago meeting, I liked when you said to the crowd, any questions? And no one said anything, and you said, well, I think we did a good job. I said that?
Funny.
Gosh, I gotta go look at that again. I don't even
I
know who
don't
that
even.
person is.
I don't know where to find it. I don't know if Carlotti put them back
We
up
used
or
to have
not.
it, yeah.
I don't know that we didn't like. I don't know. Let me guess. It's the little blonde boy. Yup. That poor kid. He must.
Yeah, we've got neighbors that are
It's just
got some
one. One,
a,
one,
a
one little
child
boy.
that's doing a bunch of screaming. It's all right. He's
He's
not being
he's
tortured by
about
anybody. He's
no,
just
he's torturing himself.
yeah, he's just
Nobody's messing with him at all. See, I
right.
already talked about I'd be pushing him around and smacking him and shut the fuck up. Man up.
Yeah, really. I wonder what he's going through.
He's got to be going through something. It's hot. It's 95 degrees out.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
it's just the other kids, you don't see them doing that. They're like running around, riding their bikes, having fun.
Yeah,
I
maybe
I
is he the
wouldn't be.
youngest one?
He might be, but it didn't. I don't know. They didn't seem like the other kids were treating him bad or anything.
No.
But maybe they are. It's too hot.
Yeah, maybe he's got a headache.
Yeah,
Who knows?
he was all red and stuff.
Oh,
He need they and
well, he needs some water maybe.
I think they're like keeping him out of the camper. They're like, don't go in there. I don't hear
Uh,
their air conditioner's not going, so
oh, it's not. Jeez.
they might be like, you need to stay outside, and he just needs to get cooled off. Poor little guy.
Yeah, they should
I'd be
dunk his
screaming
head.
and crying too.
You know, one of the things that we did in the campground when
Freaking
we were,
hot. And it's so humid right now.
if we felt like our heads were being bothered by discarnates, thoughts that we didn't want to have anymore, and it was also hot, uh, we had a barrel that was filled with water, and it was spring water, so uh,
Maybe I need that for my hot
it was
flashes.
cold, and
Maybe,
we'd stick our heads in it.
yeah, maybe I need that in my hot flashes.
Yeah, so we should get you. We should actually make those. We have a job, to make them and ship them to people.
You might be onto
Cool
something.
down.
Don't say any more because somebody else will do it, and there goes our millions.
Yeah, right.
I just want to be a thousandaire. That's it. That's not even enough. Anyway, there's a lot of people here.
Oh, okay. Well, so let me get back to what
Sorry.
Doe was talking about.
I keep forgetting you don't have a touch screen anymore. It's crazy. $700 computer and it doesn't have a touch screen.
Yeah, I know. I wish it did. I miss it,
Yeah, so
but it's okay. I can tough it out. I'm glad to have the one that we have.
that's right. Oh, you put the nanners in there?
So I didn't, I started to read from the text there before I got open to all the avenues because I wanted to talk a little bit more about what Doe said in session 4, where he talks about. I read the first paragraph earlier, and for anybody that just joined me, I'll read it again. Though says, now here's a real delicate subject I hate to discuss, but I'm afraid that our Father's kingdom is not going to come in. Boy, I can hear Lucy shouting at me before I ever get these words out of my mouth. I'm sorry, Lucy, I said. I hear Satan shouting at me. Now, I'm not going to describe why Lucy, it was just, he didn't want to use the name of Lucy because it was somebody, he didn't want somebody with that name to feel bad about being equated with Lucifer, the Satan, the individual that was the adversary against the next level, that still is. Uh, that's a reality, that there are individuals that the next level allowed to be here, and it's their jail actually, that we're in the jail with them. That's reality, and that's why.
It sucks so bad here. Wait, no.
Yeah, although we all, I mean, we're very happy for what we've got. We're doing okay, So it doesn't suck as much some places than other places.
True.
But But then with the mind, when you look at the way that people are thinking and acting, it sucks. There's a lot of garbage going on that's terrible. And there's some things that are, showing more goodness popping up here and there, but I'm not going to get into all those comparisons. But so anyway, so everybody gets what well they need to experience, I would say, and sometimes it's going to be detrimental to the vehicle itself, and sometimes it's not. And if it's detrimental to the vehicle, then the next level will take care of those spirits that are developing. If the next level feels like they've developed into something that um, uh, uh, can be useful towards growth of the human kingdom in the future, so that humans will be more recognizable of the next level's reality more easily. Um, so they're trying to make our task easier because they know it's going to still take all our efforts to overcome the human characteristics because it's going from a different kingdom level to another one. And and so everything you're doing that's natural to do in the human kingdom is something that has some degree of a reduction to or with the ultimate objective of having no influence on our lives, um, and only having our minds on older members' behaviors and ways, of, and and working towards that, and it's a process that everybody has to decide for themselves to do to
I've been trying
engage.
to look at everything that happens throughout the day as something the next level is giving me,
Hmm.
an experience that they're giving me, somebody to talk to that, I need to learn something from in that moment.
Hmm. Yeah, and also with the opportunity of potentially sharing next level information with,
Yeah.
because that's the task that's given. It's not about becoming like holy in terms of the way the religious would think about it. Which would, I mean, you
And
could
that's
be,
certainly a noble cause,
yeah, it can be a
a
noble
noble
cause,
endeavor. I mean, not cause, but endeavor.
right? You can learn a
Because
lot of
that is
things
selfish.
by different disciplines of the vehicle, right?
Well, it's not selfish to become holy, I guess, but
Well, I mean whole meaning, like let's say, well, we know that a characteristic of the next level uh, is not to be sexual. Okay, so
right.
um,
We're
and so
failing in that regard.
right, and and so that's um, but I mean, but you can have people that are not sexual, but that doesn't mean that they're growing towards next level membership
Yeah.
because it's up to the person to actually know who they're following, who they're uh, giving their commitment to. Uh, and because when it's nebulous, as the term God conveys, as the term, um, well, a New Age teacher or a contactee or becoming a devotee to a human teacher, that's talking about achieving higher states of consciousness and enlightenment so that they can be aware of a lot more than I know average human is aware of in their consciousness, and maybe even seeing more of what's unseen to many humans, and that can all be tricks though of the law of thinking that we're achieving our highest form of growth by having more and more spiritual experiences that we, or feeling like we're adding to the world with our minds, being on like thinking about peace for the for the world. Because yes, those thoughts are, are beneficial thoughts in terms of the way that members of the next level are supposed to be acting, not supposed to, but the way that members of the next level uh, grow to act like between each other. There's total peace between each other, between members of the next level. Because members of the next level don't have any need for anybody else except their older member. I know that sounds crude, uh, but then that's a lesson that they had to learn also, and that's what the lesson was that Adam, the first thing that Adam had to learn. Still at that point, even though that individual soul was a member of the next level before he started the task as Adam. Um, but he had more growth to achieve. And so, by his desire to want to help mate, by that illustration that was given, that seems to have some accuracy to it. Um, uh, it was saying to his older member that he wasn't satisfied with doing the tasks that he was given by his older member. And this wasn't an imaginary older member to him. He might have even seen him physically, actually in that location, so that he knew that his older member was communicating with him. Because they also have the same mind. So they're like, like the way that humans can be genetically connected, like with father and son and mother and daughter and mother and son and father and daughter, I guess, offspring of humans. Uh, and all those are all kind of equivalent relationships, I believe, um, in that analogy of the way that members of the next level have that same uh, relationship with, uh, but they don't have a mother and a father. They only have an older member. That's why we take it out of the gender related terminology because it's inaccurate, really. But it worked for that time period. And it still works because of our history with that time period when Jesus was teaching. Because there's a whole bunch of vehicles and there's a whole bunch of souls that were beginning to develop during that time, 2,000 years ago, and that were brought back by the next level to have an experience with the updates. And that's why those individuals aren't gravitating more or less to the religions, or they get involved with the religions and then they kind of drift away from them in any serious capacity, although they may do things related to the religion, that are fun or healthy or um, things that even the next level gave to those other religions. Like certain exercise programs and exercise of the mind programs and like the thing of not talking all the time.
The muting.
Yeah, commuting,
The muting.
the muting, yes,
Muting
of
yourself.
the verbal what comes out of our mouths. Like Jesus even talked about that don't have so many words. Say basically yes or no. I would add I don't know to that. I think he did kind of indicate that as well. Uh, and, because any, when we give explanations for a lot of things, that's where the lower forces can come in and kind of confuse things to where you then have basically hypocritical actions, meaning you know um, believing that, you know, that it's wrong to kill somebody, another human, but thinking that there's exceptions to that, and
Right.
that humans can be the determiners of what the exceptions are.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, I think we all probably have that, and of course, you know,
You know, it's like,
self-defense is part of. I believe the next level is does believe in self-defense.
I mean, as far as like capital punishment, it's like if you've killed like maybe if you killed one person, you don't deserve to die necessarily, but if you killed them like heinously, like intentionally, and
Yeah,
murder most foul,
we,
then I don't know. It feels like maybe you should die too. Like you shouldn't, you don't deserve to live when you took somebody else's life.
yeah,
But I don't think that's a next level way of thinking at all. It's just a human way of thinking potentially. I certainly wouldn't want to come across that person, and they don't deserve to get to see because the person they killed doesn't get to see anymore. They don't get to breathe, and that's
yeah.
not right.
No, I hear what you're saying.
But like if somebody killed somebody in a car accident, I don't necessarily think they should get the death penalty and be put to death, you know?
No, I
But
don't
they
think so
did the
either.
exact same thing though. They took a life. And a tiger takes a
But not
life.
intentionally. They
A
didn't do
tiger
it
takes a
intentionally.
life, you know?
Right.
I don't know. It's all jacked.
Well, I think there can, we don't know what the exceptions might be in Tino's mind. I'm just talking generalities
Yeah, I know.
in terms of, you know, uh, like, especially when it comes to the way that the military operates, you know, and just, you know, and I do, you know, respect that it seems like Trump tried to minimize the loss of human life. Um,
He
so
says that.
I think that was
Those
a good
strikes
thing.
were very, I mean, I saw some of the pictures of the before and the after, and I mean they it didn't look like, I mean it's hard to tell from that kind of imagery, but the buildings around the sites were still standing. Like not in the site itself, but like whatever buildings were outside of the, you know, perimeter of the building were still standing. I'm sure all the windows were blown out. I don't know though. But I thought that was impressive as opposed to just dropping a bomb and it wipes out a city block, you know.
Right, and you miss the you know the locations and
Right, you take out a wedding
I mean they said that the Iranians
along with
knew
your guy.
and they were moving things and you know Trump denies that they were moving much centrifuges and things they can build new centrifuges
I
you
mean,
know
there are images that I don't know if they're true. I'm sure you've seen them as well that show the trucks lined up.
cement
No, they were trucks that were at one of the, I think it was the Fordo.
so you think they were taking him out of that
Well, what else?
underground place.
What else would they be doing?
Well, I don't know how much tunnels they have. I don't know if they've got tunnels that go way
Well,
down you
but
know
even regardless, there were like over 20 trucks, 20 to 30 trucks lined up,
mm,
looking like, I mean, I don't know if that's a normal everyday occurrence at that site, but it was suggested kind of that it was not.
right okay.
Which, you know, we know the media suggests all kinds of things, so.
Yeah, but there are things that are released to the people, and certain people get things that other people don't get, and sometimes they post them, right? And so you might have seen something that was happening there. I don't doubt that.
I mean, you can, you know, like I said, go look.
But I just heard Trump talk about something about cement, those cement containers or some sort. He said they're very heavy, and but see, to me that didn't mean that they couldn't have ways to transport them. They built them. You know,
Right.
I don't get his logic in that score, but I think he's you know sometimes he's
He's a
just
little,
talking off the top of his head
and I
about stuff.
think, you know, I don't approve of whatever. We won't get into that, but um, I think that he gets, for whatever it's worth, that he is optimistic. Or maybe he thinks like if he says things that it is true. Like it will be true if he says it. You know, he's like there is a ceasefire. They hadn't agreed to it. There was no formal thing. But I think both Israel and Iran, like Iran
What
was
was it,
like,
10 minutes, the ceasefire?
I don't think they're firing on each other.
Oh, right now?
I haven't seen anything that
Oh,
they
I
are,
think what's today? Today's
but I
the
haven't been watching. So
27th.
today's the 27th. I thought it. I
I
thought
thought,
that they had
well, see, now it's
stopped.
showing something happening in Gaza.
Well, that's Israel
Yeah,
doing their normal
right,
killing
right,
everybody in Gaza.
right.
They're not going to stop that ever until everyone's dead, it seems like.
Yeah, which is a terrible
But
mess,
it
of
seems
course.
like it's easier for them to go against the own people. It's right there. They've been doing that. They're good at that.
Yeah.
But with the Iran conflict, I think that's a little bit more higher stakes.
Yeah, I don't know why they would continue to do that, hoping that they're going to run out of missiles.
That's what I'm saying.
You know
Like,
what
so
I
I
mean? It's
think
like
Iran was,
stupid.
getting to a point where, like, if we continue to bomb them, we would, like, probably bomb them out of existence.
Yeah, well, Trump didn't say he was going to, that's not in his plan at all.
Well,
So
he said he would. I don't know. I saw something on
he's,
Daily Mail. He said that he would if it
if
didn't,
if he show if he found proof that they still were
yeah,
producing nuclear material for then he would, when he found out where that was, he would have another thing go after it.
yeah.
So yeah, so he's committed to that, and hopefully it doesn't
So
cause people to lose their lives. That's kind of
so
what
if it
got into that.
continues, I think if it continues that it's they say Iran attacks another U.S. base, then I don't think that's going to go over too well.
Right,
And
right.
Iran is talking big, I guess, and saying that they won and that they slapped us in the face or something.
But they got talks they're scheduled now to have, I think so. So they'll,
Oh, everybody's
I don't think
so
any of them
crazy.
really want to have more war than they already have. I
Hey,
don't.
there's money in war, right?
Yeah, but I
We've
don't know. But you
discussed
never
that
can tell the way
before.
some of these people are thinking in different countries. We don't know what people are capable of except by history. And by history, anything goes really. And the United States is kind of on the tip of that when they, dropped A bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They, you wouldn't have thought that they would be capable of that, but they are.
Right, right.
And the reason for that has to do with some of what I was talking about in the title to this. Um, oh, I didn't mean to put that there. Hmm.
Hmm.
On the some examples of the um, stupidity of the space aliens.
Yeah.
One example to me, I'm not going to say it's the biggest example. I'd like to wrong if I can express this and feel that, if T and Do or anybody else that has learned about what T and Do were teaching, uh, can comment on. But I think the biggest uh, thing um, is to act like you can become a higher being by belief alone. That you know, and and not continuously striving for um, to know more than you know, and, and growing to recognize where you can go to find out more than you know, and when you find that source, uh, not getting talked out of it, going in that direction until you feel like you've learned everything you can learn from it. So, like moving on. But as soon as we get to a place, if we do get to this place, for those that this might be referring to, which I hope I'm not part of, uh, um, if you think you've arrived at something, if you've arrived at enough enlightenment or enough satisfaction with your life, um, that's all fine. It's all part of the human kingdom. You know, there's no, but you're actually closing yourself off to uh, the fact that there's always more to grow to. There's always more. So you can just automatically know that when you open yourself up to uh, where that's demonstrated, where that belief, or if you want to call it a belief, that philosophy or that idea comes from, of there being endless growth and changes. And of course, we see the stair steps in the world with the mineral kingdom and the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom and the human kingdom, right? Like four different kingdom levels that you can, if you studied any of the previous kingdom levels at all, even in just observational mostly, you can see there's a type of uh, um, development of mind. We especially see it in animals that become domesticated, but we also see it in fellow humans, like evolving beyond having differences of the way our vehicles look, or our gender of our vehicles, or the health of our vehicles in terms of the way that we would treat one another. You know, like if somebody's sick, you know, people used to run away from that person if they were like in a wheelchair or something. They were like, oh my gosh, look at that person.
Don't want to
There's
catch
something,
that.
yeah, there's something, don't want to catch that. There might be something wrong with them. And then some people saying that they're being punished for past sins. And, you know, start putting that victimhood on them, you know, and like making judgments about people when that might not be what's happening at all. Uh, and it could be a really good growth experience for that individual that's in that circumstance to experience in that rejection. Being, you know, that helps you separate from the human kingdom when you're in some form of rejected class of people. Uh, because if your mind is continuing to grow by reaching out for to understand and learn more about our reality, uh, then you get with that a certain. Uh, it's like when when somebody studies anything, they get a certain way of thinking about things that uh, can be a little bit clearer recognition of things that aren't as real. I don't know, I'm not saying it very well because I know there's, you know, you can say, well, that's all in your interpretation, Sawyer. And yes, of course it is. And of things that are happening in the world, like even distinguishing yourself from the individuals that are standing on podiums and saying things that they think is true or they think is valid for that moment or they think they see the events that are taking place and they see the necessity of those events and but seeing what and then hearing what they're saying and saying, you know, that doesn't make sense what they're doing there, or that's an extreme way of thinking in that circumstance. Making little judgments that we all can tend to make, which I think is, wanting to stay connected with it, wanting to know what's going on, is a challenge, of course, because you're being faced with all different perspectives, and human life is involved a lot of times, and all kinds of things in the human kingdom that are emotionally affecting us. And uh, so all I'm getting at, I guess, is that we're all in the grades in school potentially, but we're not going to be growing out of the human kingdom unless we go towards what gives us the most evidence of taking us outside the human kingdom today. Because if we go by the past, like with the religions that talk about that, like going to heaven, right, or having nirvana, or even, well, I won't go there, but all different kinds of pursuits, intellectual pursuits, and the highest forms of knowledge that we have, going in those directions as well, and governmental positions, and
Do
becoming
you?
kings and queens of empires and things are all lesson. Yeah, that looks good to me.
Do you?
Yogurt. Yeah, I can
Uh,
use a little nutrition.
Good.
Anyway, I guess I can just. I'm kind of rambling on, but.
See what's going on in the chat,
Hmm.
maybe. That was a big banana. Okay.
Well, nothing new in the chat, unless it's not updating, right? Let me see here.
Well, sometimes.
Maybe we're not even going anymore.
Oh.
We are on OBS.
I haven't checked. Somebody say something quick. Oh no, not another hot flash. That's okay. That's okay.
Oh,
Have you not been going for a while? Oh.
it doesn't look like. I can't tell. Where's the numbers
It
ticking by?
says live now.
It says
You're
live,
live.
but it doesn't say any time on it.
You're okay.
It's got a big lag if it's working, because
Yeah, it always does. Well, I
no,
shouldn't say.
I don't think it's that big of a lag. I think I'm dead, baby.
Why don't you turn the. I'm looking at it right here. Yeah, I
Do you see
just.
me waving?
Yeah, I did.
Really?
Yeah. Stop. God. Look, stop it. You look like
Hey, let me do that too. We're gonna have to do it together.
But I'm having a hot flash right now, so give me back my fucking pen.
Okay.
1, 2. Buckle my shoe.
Well, that's a good idea. I'm glad you got that.
Yes, it's very helpful. It stops the sweat, the instant sweating. So, what we're talking about is not that anybody cares, but I got this beautiful
Wait a minute. Let me
fan.
see if
You
you're
can
actually
see it.
getting it in there.
I just saw it.
Okay.
I just saw it, baby. Um, they were $10 for a pack of 4 on Amazon, and
I'm jammed.
oh look, look.
The video's jammed.
No, it's not. I just saw it. Just talk, okay? We can see you eating your yogurt with a banana.
All right.
Do you guys see why we love him so much?
So I'm so goofy.
Now he's got energy.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh. You know
Um,
what would be nice is to have a thermometer or some kind of like skin thermometer to see how hot it gets when you're having a hot flash. Yeah, I'll take it. Because this stuff is no joke.
I know. I've been experiencing you going through it.
So you're doing ASMR?
Is that what I'm doing? I'm
You
smacking
never
my lips and
imagined it.
stuff, cleaning out the jar.
Oh, sorry, guys.
I just don't understand why my YouTube screen
Don't
is
worry about it, sweets.
not alive.
Don't worry about it.
Should I start it over again?
No, you should not.
All right.
I've shown you 4 or 5 different times that it's streaming just fine.
Okay.
And don't worry about it.
All right.
Or you
So
can worry about it
no, I don't need to.
needlessly.
But I was going through my notes. I know I was going to get to the. Well, I should still go back to the where they talked about.
See?
I was going through my notes. Yeah. I know I was going to get to the. Well, I should still go
See, it's okay.
back. Okay.
I love that picture, the older member. All Odie with the hat. You've got some funny hats too.
Oh, it talks about. There's too much of this in here. Let's see. What am I looking for that's unique? Flowing. There it is. That got to it. So the next paragraph in Doe session 4, he says, I'm afraid our Father's kingdom is not going to come in and have someone looking like the common picture of Jesus floating down to the planet in flowing garb, showing scars, and saying, I, Jesus, have come to give you peace, and peace for the world. I'm afraid our Father's kingdom desires no peace for the human kingdom. In our Father's kingdom can be found peace. Now, some people take that to mean, it's okay to have war, right? But he's just saying that the human kingdom was made to outgrow, and so that's why difficulties are here. That's why they have wars
Yeah,
and stuff
yeah.
because they provided the opportunity to have classrooms within the jail. So in the jail, there were individuals that want to be out of the jail. They want to go to different planets. They want to leave, and they're going to spend any money they can to develop ways of doing that. And so I guess they don't care so much about balancing books and stuff. That's why. That's the overview. I'm not saying they have that consciousness individually. I don't think most of them do. But
Hmm.
but some, I don't know how many people do have that consciousness um, that they're connected with some space aliens that want to leave the planet. You know, but I know there are contactees that have relationships with space aliens that that those people become like diplomats in a sense to other humans, and they form groups and they have regular meetings and even ongoing relationships with those contactees having their contact with a space race, members from a space race. Race meaning, the species. And and, and what I was going to try to get to with this from the last time I talked about this, part of session 4, is that Tiendo felt like the Lady of Fatima was a like a hologram that was made by those space alien souls. They had the technology to do that kind of thing, and we can see humans coming to be able to make things in the sky, like faces and things, with the drones. So I don't know if the technology that the space aliens have is a lot better than that, or that they had that equivalent technology um, in the early 1900s when that Our Lady of Fatima, when those sightings occurred to those young girls, uh, where they were depicting, they thought it was the Virgin Mary. Now, the reason they were thinking that was because I don't know if they were transmitting those thoughts to them, which is a high possibility, as they were showing their hologram, uh, or if they were actually speaking in their language, those thoughts, whether the people could audibly pick it up or just go to their subconscious. That's what I'm talking about. So that they just had the feeling of what was happening there, and that feeling was accurate to what was happening. It was a falsified event. It was unreal. It was not the truth because the next level wouldn't lure people with signs and wonders, except to the degree that they did that was not exactly a lure in the same way at all by uh, things that Jesus did that people called miracles. But the thing with what Doe felt about the miracles that were depicted in the New Testament was that,
That's
like,
what
I
I was
thought the
getting
number was like 90% of them, he said, were exaggerated.
to.
And he didn't go into which ones were and were not.
Mm,
So uh, take that for what it can be worth, but it makes sense that those are the things that Jesus would become known for when um, that was for a certain stage of lessons for some individuals to experience and put their focus on, as opposed to putting your focus on what his teachings actually were of how to behave and how to think about the future and relate to his teachings and then perform tasks of delivering those teachings to other people because the next level is all about service.
yeah.
So go back to the chat.
I don't think there's much going on. Nobody wants to talk. 25. We're gonna start with that.
Yeah, it says Mr. Sorkiller says I've seen you've uploaded more shorts to your
Oh, yeah,
channel.
that's right.
You don't consider writing anything in the posts section. You've only written 3.
That's a good. That's a good idea.
Oh, and
There's
like even the drumming things and stuff like that.
Well, no, there's a section on YouTube where you can make a post,
Oh,
like write.
And
stuff.
so everybody who subscribes gets that?
I guess so.
I never really used that. I don't know why.
Well, that's what he's.
I should be using it.
I guess so. You can, experiment with
Yeah,
it.
I mean, you know,
Wouldn't hurt to try.
yeah, really, really. So I guess I'll learn about that. So thanks for that reminder. I mean, I think I might have written a few things.
Well, like you said, you've done 3.
Oh yeah, okay, right. Old school Dave says one.
No,
Folklore
that's.
says two.
Oh.
Maybe they're referring to something else. Anyway, Sawyer's doing oh yeah, you would never imagined it. Okay, cool. Can I make money doing it? ASMR.
Some
Jackie
people are
looked into that, and she does some of that on her channel, or her coloring channel.
unintentional ASMR.
Yeah, when you hear the pen going right,
Yeah, I guess.
and you're used to a little, I guess. You can write, upload photos, etc. Oh, okay. I don't know why I haven't been doing that. So uh, I do that on the Sawyer Heaven's Gate page on Facebook, and between that and the other things that I keep up with, I just really haven't had a lot of time, and I don't necessarily cut and paste things. You know, I do respond to comments on these videos. I try to. Sometimes I miss them. I can always go back and find things. Every once in a while, I go to the studio, YouTube studio, and I can
Yeah.
see everything that somebody said
Yeah, thing.
that I'm missing.
Very helpful.
You know, so it's time that I do that. So, well, maybe I'm coming to the end of this. I hope I made a few
It is
good points.
7-Eleven, so you've got to work. You're the worker tomorrow.
Yeah,
You've got to drive the car.
yes. And so I think
We
bringing
need
this to a
to.
close, I hope this has been of some value to somebody. Um,
Yeah, we actually got to go out there and do some stuff too. Because I don't want to go out there in the morning with you. It's too.
oh, okay, good. But the human kingdom was not designed to work because Doe said that even though the human kingdom could have become the kingdom of our Father, or their older member, had those who were created in the human kingdom made all the options to do only his will, instead of listening to those who were influencing them to do otherwise. So that's the way Doe thought about that. And so, that, in terms of saying that, the human kingdom was not where you're going to find peace. So, I mean, so that's why they said that somebody was going to come and bring peace. And some people think it's Jesus, but it's really anybody that's coming and using the name of Jesus and saying he's coming to bring peace, which there's been quite a few who have done that. Uh, they're not actually representing their older member, the real, true Jesus, the soul. Uh, they're representing a facsimile, somebody that wants to give them that impression, a space alien soul probably, that wants them to take on that position, to lure people that were prepared ancestrally for the return away from actually seeing the return when it's actually physically here through the in the flesh presence of two older members as the two witnesses and as the woman and the man in the illustrations in Revelation 12 and 11. So and other places. as the song, T and Do coming from the notes of the scale of the sound of music. Um, which I saw somebody talk about the tone A and and the thinking that making it into 440 hertz from I think what was in Europe as 444 hertz maybe or 442. It was 442 hertz. And changing it to 440 hertz in the United States, they were saying that that was like the reason for the destruction of the wars and stuff. I was thinking, oh, holy smokes, because of the power of sound. See, that's what I'm talking about. Making those kind of huge connections with changing, 2 out of 100 vibrations of frequency in that sound, uh, and having that contribute to the destruction of humanity, kind of thing. I don't know. I just that's beyond my, that's like to me thinking that, you know, some only primary reason of, I mean, it might have been part of, if the next level came up with the change, and had humans become aware of their thinking in that regard. Uh, but it was interesting in the light of they were talking about the tone A, which is the
Mm.
440 or 442 hertz, and depending on where you are on the planet. So, uh, and we had the A tone given to us in the classroom by giving each group of maybe about 6 groups uh, a tuning fork that was tuned to 440 hertz, the note A, and they gave it to us as a tone to think of, to memorize the tone, and think of that tone to try to block out as another method of blocking out certain thoughts that we don't want to have anymore. And so that's where, you can't be brainwashed to do this, because if you don't put out the work to do it, if you don't apply that thinking about that tone when you're having certain thoughts, and as quick as you can when you're having certain thoughts, then to that degree, you're not actually growing your mind into a mind that can control its thoughts. And it doesn't mean that you don't receive any thoughts. You do. They're just not thoughts that are from the human kingdom. Or if you have a thought that's from the human kingdom, because you're dealing with human things, of course, uh, um, then depending on what it is, might be something to bring up to your teachers if you have them available, which we did in 1976, and say, would you be thinking like this or that about this subject or that subject? And you'll see that throughout the audio tapes where students are in different forms doing that, but not doing that freelance kind of ways. Most of the time, T and Do came to us because they had something to share with us, or they wanted to hear questions from us based on like a previous tape, or something that's happening in the world in specific that they want to talk about a little bit, or a lot of times they just started talking about those things because of their observations of those things during the time when they were planning to talk to us about another subject. And then sometimes they would talk to us about something, and then throughout they would spend more time on that than what they were thinking they were coming to talk to us about. And so then they end up sometimes bringing that up at the end of a meeting. It happened in all different ways that T and O were demonstrating how they were trying to be in tune with their older member's mind. And of course, they contained their older member's mind, like a big blob of it.
Blob.
Yes, a blob.
Sorry.
And that's what they were both. They didn't know the mechanics of how it was actually formed technically. Um, but they didn't really, even though they wanted to understand some of those things, they knew that if they didn't, it wasn't necessary because of the way that we can get off track with, being glued into the technicalities of how things are done by the next level, and like candy, it's like being given interesting, thoughts that are fantastical and beyond our ability to conceive of without either having studied that subject or having heard from T and O on that subject or someone else who
Sorry.
you know can talk about certain subjects uh, well, because the next level is potentially working with all kinds of people in the human kingdom with trying to help them upgrade their thinking and behaviors and ways and come to see the truth about the highest purpose that humans can have on this planet, being to graduate into next level membership and how it's a process. So I'm going to leave with saying that the process continues now. But we're humans and we need our human vehicles in order to have experiences. So anybody that thinks they can shortcut it, but because they're ready to leave, and they can think they can just, well, I can just off myself and then I'll be in the next level. Well, I'm not to say what will happen to your soul or spirit, but 'cause the next level doesn't waste anything. But I do know that there's a lot to learn with our vehicles now, and we can prove to the next level that we really believe in them by being of service to them and seeing how we can share this information with others is what that service is all about, which was said in many different ways throughout the tapes and in writings uh, um, that we all have access to in the Heaven's Gate book. And so learning about what they taught is a huge part of the task,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can talk to other people um, and and give them examples of the differences in certain ways of thinking. Not so much as trying to like bombard somebody with their information without seeing some signs of them asking for somebody asking for that. Like let's say you're in a club or something, and somebody starts talking about that 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 fireball or something that was just showing up somewhere. And so that becomes a natural way that for me I want to actually bring up some other things about that subject. And even I take the opportunity to bring up UFOs when if somebody brings up something like that, because that's where my thoughts go in what that was, and
Mm-hmm.
how I don't do that much in the public when I'm working because I don't want to,
Draw attention
yeah, I don't want to draw attention to
and
myself
freak people out.
and freak anybody out, right? Uh, you have to kind of be, I mean, to do a good job, and it doesn't mean that you're limited because your thoughts can actually be helping somebody that you're in the presence of if they're reaching for certain thoughts. Not that we are all as powerful, but those thoughts are powerful. They're more powerful. I don't know how much more powerful. It may be negligible at this point between us and anybody that doesn't believe in T and those kind of thinking. because they can believe it in their own way, and they just haven't heard certain words put together in certain ways. Like Kathy was talking about the other day, linking together that um,
Jesus came on a UFO.
Jesus came out in a UFO,
Yeah.
yeah, on a spacecraft. Considering that, as a question, I wonder if or I believe that that's possible. You know, which to some people is going to be a new thought, and they can make all kinds of leaps and bounds.
For me, 8 years ago, that was a new thought.
Right. Kathy said if you couldn't hear her, that for her 8 years ago, that was a new thought. And and that's the way it is. Uh, you know, um, and it's beautiful. It's a it's a free will design that you don't go after something that you don't choose to go after. It's really as simple as that. And so to be told that, I was brainwashed by TNW, they mesmerized me into joining and believing what they had to say because I needed to believe in something greater than myself and I wanted to be part of something that was big and all those things are probably true in some ways, but uh, it's a
Where's
very
your own
limited
personal
understanding.
accountability?
It's personal accountability.
Yeah, I said, where's the individual's own personal accountability?
Right.
People can't think for themselves
Well, they think by looking at
and make your own choices,
that story, the story of Doe and the crew leaving, that it was such a traumatic event that it's hard for them to not not become a parrot of what the media was saying the whole time, or what their previous belief system was for or against in certain use of terminology. If you became somebody that hated religion and you heard the word heaven in the title of the group, you would automatically think, oh, that's another one of those religious kooks,
Yeah.
right? And so, there's all kinds, and so the next level chooses that terminology because it does still appeal to certain individuals with what's true. They're not trying to get you to appeal to it to try to get you to do something for them. They don't need you to do anything for them. They don't need you at all. We could all be dead tomorrow and they would be still operating this planet and whatever other planets they have laboratories on to do different things with. So uh, that's how you can tell that this is the only real one, the most real one, even though all the other ones have little pieces of next level reality in them in different ways.
Anyway, you're leaving.
Yeah, like one example leaving though is that uh, um, the space aliens also have characteristics that uh, they want law and order, as I remember Tiendo talking about. They approve of having law and order. So, that's that's why you'd probably see different forms of law and order throughout the world, in the interpretation of that. And that doesn't mean that they are doing it or that humans are doing it the way the next level would like to see a certain amount of law and order. Because the next level's law and order has to do with our minds and how we treat each other, their laws for us. And so that's the example that we have of what not to do in the human kingdom, or if we did it in the past, not do it anymore, or which I mean, there's all kinds of ways of thinking about things that even if we are doing things that aren't the ideal of what the next level hopes for us uh, down the road, even, or for our circumstance now, uh, um, we can still gain strength from dealing with the things that we're dealing with. It's not like all or nothing. There's all kinds of ways to grow your mind, and the next level has all the tools for that to help us with it. So, but we have to ask for it. We have to ask them to give us lessons and give us service if they feel like we can do things with them. And they've already said giving carte blanche service to everybody who believes in them by sharing their information with others. So on that note, I'm going to say good night. Well, Dave said, "Is your mic on, buddy?" That's weird. Yes. Yeah, it's still jamming. Dave said, "Is your mic on, buddy?" Yeah, we can hear it on the phone. Is it just low? Because of the air conditioner, maybe? Yeah. Well, I'm going to end the stream anyway, so.
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay. Yeah.
Just low.
Yeah, I can hear
So Mr. Soulkiller said, "Well, Sawyer, I loved being here the last 90 minutes, but I have to go. Thanks for everything. Take care, Sawyer, and you too, Kathy." School Dave says, "Have a thank you.
it.
Thank you as well for hanging in here, and we'll be talking again. I hope. Bye."